Increasing Calorie Expenditure, the Efficiency Guide. So we are going to be talking about ways of how to improve upon burning calories, burning energy, whatever synonym of calorie or energy you want to use. So let's get into it. Another way of saying calorie expenditure is saying calories out. And ways that we burn calories or we get calories out are these four methods here. We have resting metabolism, which is just the energy required for us to stay alive without doing anything. When we are at rest, our body still needs to perform functions that require energy, and that's our resting metabolism. Accidental energy expenditure. Another term for this is non-exercise activity. So essentially it's movements that require energy that don't necessarily or aren't necessarily on purpose, which is why I call it accidental energy expenditure. It's not like I am going to go and work out. That would be exercise. So forms of accidental energy expenditure are my hand gestures that I am having, washing dishes, going from a seated position to a standing position, stuff like that. Food consumption. It's kind of weird to think of consuming food, which is, of course, calories, as a way of burning food, but it's the food that we choose to consume that will have an effect on our calorie expenditure. And then exercise. Obviously, we can exercise and we can burn calories. We all know that. But let's get into it a little bit deeper and how we improve all of those things. So improving resting metabolism, we have two options. There are more to it than that, but I think the two that we can have an effect on the most, or that will have the greatest effect on resting metabolism, would be sleep and muscle mass. So sleep is like the number one life enhancer. When we sleep, certain things happen with our hormones, and then those hormones are going to regulate our resting metabolism. When sleep sucks, for lack of a better term, our hormones kind of get a little bit out of whack, and then it reduces the efficiency of our resting metabolism. This is an oversimplification, but that's just kind of the idea behind it. Also, when we sleep worse, we are less likely to move. We're just going to be a little bit more tired and more fatigued. So something like our accidental energy expenditure will decrease. We might make worse food choices because we're tired and we want like those quick bursts of energy from like sugary stuff. So there's a couple different things that sleep can affect there. And then muscle mass. Muscle is expensive to have on your body, and it is paid with calories. So the more muscle that you have, the more calories that you burn just while at rest to maintain that muscle mass. Next, so improving accidental energy expenditure. I already kind of talked about some options, but you could just try to walk more. You could go from a seated position to a standing position more frequently, like doing that every 20 to 30 minutes or so. That would greatly improve your accidental energy expenditure. You could play some music in the background and kind of like just casually dance to it a little bit without actually focusing on the music. If you're just kind of nodding your head or whatever, that's a great way to burn extra energy. Excuse me. You could just fidget more. We probably all know these people who are just like sitting at a desk or something, and then they're like, you can't see my leg, but they're like tapping their leg, or they're clicking their pen, or tapping their pen, or they're just kind of constantly moving. These are fidgeters. And fidgeters burn about 800 to 2,500 more calories per day than non-fidgeters. That's what I learned from Andrew Huberman, who has an amazing podcast that I highly recommend. And 800 to 2,500, that's a lot. That can be a very big difference. So just being somebody who's a little bit more fidgety could be a great way to improve accidental energy. But my favorite option is play some music in the background and dance along a little bit. That's my favorite option. I think that should be appropriate in work offices if it's not already. I don't go to a work office, so I have no idea. Next, excuse me, food consumption. So there are certain foods that we can eat that will improve or increase the amount of calories needed to digest those foods. So protein, for example, requires a lot of energy expenditure to digest and absorb. Same with like veggies that are higher in fiber and fairly dense veggies. Excuse me. Also, this might be counterintuitive, but having lower calories is going to decrease your metabolism. So this is actually should go up in the resting metabolism section. The lower your calories are, especially for a long period of time, the lower your resting metabolism is going to become because your body is getting used to surviving off of those fewer calories. So actually increasing your calories is going to increase your resting metabolism. However, if you go too far, then you will gain weight, obviously. But gaining weight also improves your resting metabolism. And if you want the biggest improvement in resting metabolism, you can increase calories, gain weight, but have that weight be muscle mass, and there you go. I just combined like 3 different ones. Higher calories, higher muscle, better resting metabolism. Sorry if I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Next, so exercise. Of course, exercise can help us increase energy expenditure. I have listed these options in order of greatest benefit to least benefit. So strength training, as heavy as possible with as much range of motion as possible. This is because not only will you burn a decent amount of calories within that training session, but that will also have the greatest effect to build muscle mass. And like I said before, increasing muscle mass is one of the greatest ways to increase resting metabolism. So that's why strength training is at the top. It has potential to burn a lot of calories in that session. It also has the greatest potential to increase muscle mass. If you go as heavy as you can with as much range of motion as you can. I'm not saying go lift something crazy heavy with like 0 range of motion because then it's probably too heavy. You want to go through as much range of motion as you can while challenging your muscles as much as possible. So I'm not necessarily saying just go crazy heavy. I hope that comes across. Next is high intensity interval training with weights. So I mention with weights because similar to strength training, within that session you will likely burn a lot of calories. And then if you're doing HIIT training with weights, you're also likely to potentially build more muscle mass, which is why that comes in second place. And then there's steady state cardio training. This is in third, not because it will burn a lot of calories within that session, that training session, but it will, if you are maintaining an elevated, steady heart rate, it will improve your cellular respiration, which is just the way that our body burns fat as energy. We can burn fat as energy, or we can burn glucose/sugar for energy. And improving cellular respiration is how we burn fat for energy. But there's a caveat to that. If you already have plenty of glucose floating around for your body to use as energy, then you are less likely to burn fat within that training session. So I think cardio kind of has this misconception around it that it's the best way to burn fat, and that is not the case within that training session, unless you deplete all of your glucose and glycogen stores. Then you can start burning fat. I hope that makes sense. HIIT training without weights comes in fourth because you will probably burn a decent amount of calories within that session, but you are less likely to build muscle mass from training that way. And then walking comes in fifth, but I want to say it comes in fifth from a calorie burning standpoint, but from an beneficial for life standpoint, I would say that it ties with strength training, especially if you're going for a walk and you are being present, you are seeing where you are, like you're noticing your surroundings, and you're getting some good arm swing action. It's just going to make you feel good. It's going to be really good for recovery. If you walk uphill, then that could also potentially, if you get your heart rate high enough, could be similar to a steady state cardio training session and improve cellular respiration. So I think walking is just as important as strength training, except it's not going to burn as many calories, and it might not have, well, it's definitely not going to increase muscle mass unless you're like lunge walking with weights. Then you will definitely then you will definitely build some muscle if you do that for long enough. But then it's not really walking anymore, and it becomes a strength training session. So see how that works. Anyways, so that is how you can maximize your calorie expenditure by affecting these four things: either exercise, food consumption, accidental energy expenditure, and resting metabolism. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.